So, hello, Mr. Denys Davydov, an expert in aviation and a
Hello.
guest at UATV studio. It's really glad to see you here and talk today to us.
Thanks for having me. And yeah, very nice to join you today.
Yeah, and what I would like to talk about today is Army aviation, including helicopters. Just a couple of days ago, Ukrainian intelligence, together with missile forces, have conducted an operation delivering a strike with HIMARS missiles and destruction of 4 Russian attack helicopters in Belgorod region, 2 Ka-52 alligators and 2 Mi-8 transport and assault helicopters. Just a quick overview what the Army Aviation is doing on the front line of Ukraine and Russia right now, because Ukraine has helicopters, Russians have helicopters, they're different, and they play different roles as far as I can understand.
Yeah, you see, for as for the Belgorod case, it was the good cooperation of Ukrainian intelligence and Ukrainian armed forces. I guess we used HIMARS for that attack. Definitely, Russia based their helicopters, 2 of the Mi-8 and 2 of the Ka-52. So how do they use those? Basically, they use attack helicopters together with the transport to land their paratroopers, sometimes even behind the front lines, behind the positions of the Ukrainian army. They basically fly very low, and our radars they cannot identify those helicopters and to fire some sort of the RST or the Patriot missiles. It's basically impossible. So our guys usually have manpads, Soviet-made Igla, or supplied manpads from other countries like Stinger, famously known. So this operation definitely was. So yesterday I heard the rumors at first about the strike, and today the video was published confirming the case. Some of the experts say that the helicopters themselves were not hit, but you don't need to hit the helicopters with HIMARS missile exactly, because HIMARS, it has lots of the shrapnel, like more than 100,000 of the small
Yeah,
particles, and helicopters, they're
180,000 Wolfram particles in
yeah,
one round.
yeah, and helicopters, they're not tanks. They're not made from steel or armor. They are made out of this very simple alloy, and it's very easily penetrated by any sort of the shrapnel. So you don't need to hit the helicopter to disable it directly. So the shrapnel helps a lot, and actually that's what our guys done with the help of the ATACMS missile, with the cluster munition warhead targeting, for example, Berdansk airport, where Russia before based their helicopters. And I guess for the single attack, they lost around 8 of them. And helicopters are kind of versatile if we speak about small sabotage, paratroop missions. So Russia tried to use it, and they landed their helicopters actually outside the main airfield, somewhere in the field, randomly. But yeah, somehow our guys understood that there is the position of the Russian helicopters by the time, so intelligence helped a lot. Maybe even Americans, for the time they disabled the intelligence information access for Ukraine, but now they resume it, so probably even they help. We do not know the exact details of this operation, but we have what we have, a successful case for Ukrainian army. Also, today there was the news about Russia lost Sukhoi 25 during the training flight. So sometimes also happens in Russia. They need to train new pilots because they have also losses, especially for Sukhoi 25, Sukhoi 34 throughout this war. They lost many of the machines. And speaking about Ka-52, which they lost yesterday, helicopters, I guess they lost already half of their Ka-52 fleet altogether since the beginning of the war. So yeah, in general, Ukraine worked. I would say it's one of the most successful strike of Ukraine on Russian aviation, which happened yesterday on the Russian territory, if we speak.
Well, the Ka-52 was designed to fight NATO in a big conventional war, and after 3 years of a big war in Ukraine against Ukraine, the Russian aviation fleet has lost up to a half of those, more than they are modestly modern aircraft. And also, I believe that Su-34, a couple of them were shot down in a campaign when Patriot missile launchers were used to strike aviation over the border of Russia. I remember that time very well. It was summer 2023, and then the Biden administration said you cannot do that. You have no permission to use Patriot over Russian territory. But still, that permission to hit Russian territory led to a decrease in glide bomb strikes because, as well as drones, the new wonder weapon, Wunderwaffe of this war are glide bombs, basically dumb bombs, ordinary ones with wings and GPS navigation. So these are two know-hows of the latest conflict, which are used by Ukraine, Western variants, and by Russia. But what about strategic aviation? We have some missile planes like Tu-95, Tu-22 in Olenia airfields, and also MiG-31s. They have not taken off for a long time right now. What happened to those strategic kind of aviation in Russia?
Well, MiG-31, I wouldn't say it's like strategic, but Russia converted this airplane as the launcher for their Kinzhal missiles, hypersonic, and definitely we haven't seen this airplane flying for a while. The problem for Russia that they cannot produce those airplanes any longer, or they can just modify them. Maybe they're running out of the resource mainly for their engine because this airplane was made as at first as the interceptor of the other airplanes, for example, surveillance airplanes, which Americans used during during the Cold War. So yeah, those airplanes are made like MiG-31 are made for several of the missions before significant maintenance should be done to the engines, maybe even to the airframe. I don't know whether it's the resource or maybe it's the decision of the Russia to maybe they have some issues with their Kinzhal missiles. Maybe they already run out of those because Ukraine shut down many of them using Patriots. That's why Patriots are very important air defense systems for Ukraine. So, but the fact is the fact. Definitely, they reduced their missions flying MiG-31. About strategic, well, recently we also heard about the success of Ukraine hitting Engels airfield. That's why even before Russia understood the vulnerability of their airplanes in Engels, because it's closer than Alenia, so they moved the vast part of their strategic aviation fleet to Alenia, which is in the far north part of Russia. And still they use those. You see, like mostly they switched to Shahid drones. They use different tactics now to hit Ukrainian infrastructure, but still they do it. And sometimes they use their strategic aviation. So I wouldn't count that they will not use it in the future, but they became more vulnerable. Still, they have the angles, they have some of the airplanes there, and the Ukrainian army disabled that airfield for Russia for a while because like ammunition depot was hit. Somehow it was very close to the local village, and
Somehow, yeah.
because of the shock, yeah, somehow, they built the airfield like with munition storage far away from the airfield itself to save the airfield. But instead, they built a civilian infrastructure like 100 meters away from the very huge ammunition depot. So I don't know. I don't understand that logic. I think there were no casualties, but some of the households were kaputted with the help of this shock wave. But nevertheless, Ukraine disabled at least for several weeks that airport. So I do not expect that Russia would launch something from them from angles, which is good. About caps, gliding aviation bombs, I think Russians took the idea from JDAMs, American-made, and unfortunately, they successfully implemented that idea, even using FAB 3000. And today, I guess it was the attack on Sumy city. Russia also used gliding bombs, unfortunately, hitting civilian infrastructure there. And for the moment, HIMARS was a game changer for Ukrainian army. Russia had to withdraw their supply lines, their forces to save them from the HIMARS strikes. Few of the HIMARS did it. But later on, Russia found out their Wunderwaffe, their gliding bombs. That is what we are in lack of. Like we have JDAMs, but they're not so powerful. They're more precise, I would say, but they're not so powerful as the Russian-made or Soviet-made aviation gliding bombs. And Russia still, unfortunately, has superiority. They have more airplane types than we have, and they have many more airplanes compared to Ukraine. That's why Ukraine, even with F-16s, is forced to use those F-16s just for defense. Because to conquer, for example, Russian Sukhoi 35, like 4.5 generation fighter jet, F-16 is not enough. Like you need to have lots and lots of the airplanes to conquer Russian fighter jets to save your fleet. Because if Ukraine, for example, starts to use F-16s now on the front lines straight away against Russians would shut down many of those. They still have S-400, S-300, and they have sophisticated fighter jets, more sophisticated than F-16s, unfortunately for us.
Yes, and about that angle strike, as far as I can know, it was allegedly made with Long Neptune, the new modification of Neptune cruise missile made in Ukraine. So it's a domestic one, and obviously any kind of allies and partners cannot restrict the strikes in those. And I have a thought come to my mind about the Swedish Saab airplanes, long-range reconnaissance airplanes, 2 of them, which will soon be delivered to Ukraine, that will work in pairs with F-16 fleet. Maybe those will do a difference, just like, the A-50 long-range reconnaissance Russian airplanes, which were used to locate our air defenses and bypass them in mass missile strikes.
Well, Saabs may help with surveillance. They definitely may expand the radar surveillance of F-16s because, for example, Sukhoi 35 Russian-made, it has the most powerful radar from all of the airplanes, from all of the fighter jets. So to compensate it, we need some other tools like Saab surveillance airplanes, which Sweden may supply to Ukraine. It's like separate transmission station, separate radar that connects to F-16 and expands widely the range cover of F-16s. But again, according to the latest information, Swedish side said that we should modernize our F-16s, some of them. Like not all of the F-16s we obtained are able to cooperate or connect to those Saab flying radars surveillance. So yeah, it's a good tool, but still we should cooperate with our allies for the constant maintenance and upgrade of our airplanes which were delivered.
Okay, thank you. That was a pretty comprehensive overview of the aerial situation with the planes, aircraft, helicopters, and even missiles. It's always a pleasure to have you for our interview and comments, such brief and detailed explanations. That's really great. Thank you much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, and it was Denys Davydov for UATV Studio, with me, Pavlo Shtermach, the host for us. And yeah, that's it for today. Thank you for watching and share this video.